In the vast and often unsettling world of true crime, a single, seemingly insignificant detail can unravel an entire case, a forgotten fingerprint, a misremembered timeline, a fleeting glimpse of a suspect. But what happens when the most confounding detail isn't a clue, but a name? This is a story about two boys, two families, and two profoundly different worlds, colliding in the digital ether through a tragic coincidence. One was Mohammed Al-Araimi, the 20-year-old son of a wealthy Omani Sheikh, a university student with a bright future, murdered for his luxury watch on the glittering, holiday-decorated streets of London. The other, Mohammed al-Alami, a child of just 12, was shot and killed by soldiers in the West Bank while on a routine errand with his father. Two shocking deaths, two separate worlds, tragically connected by a name so similar it creates a strange and devastating echo online. How could two lives, born into such different circumstances, both end in such abrupt, violent, and public ways? And what does the pursuit of justice truly look like when the cases are separated by geography, culture, and vastly different legal systems? In London, a promising King's College student is brutally killed for his Patek Philippe watch, a crime that, while horrifying, appears to be a straightforward, if tragic, story of street-level avarice. Yet, when you search for information about this senseless act, you might also find the story of another boy, with an almost identical name, killed by soldiers 2 years later in a disputed and harrowing incident. This is the almost unbelievable story of two Mohammeds, tragically linked, not by evidence, conspiracy, or any tangible connection, but by a coincidence of nomenclature that casts a harsh light on two very different worlds, and two very different paths to what we call justice. A murder in Knightsbridge. On the evening of December 5, 2019, the exclusive London district of Knightsbridge was a tableau of festive opulence, its streets sparkling with holiday lights and thronged with affluent shoppers. Just a stone's throw from the world-famous Harrods department store, 20-year-old Mohammed Al-Araimi was walking with his friend, Nasser Kanu, after enjoying dinner at an Italian restaurant. Mohammed was the son of Sheikh Abdullah Al-Araimi, a prominent Omani property developer and founder of the Al-Raid Group, a business empire started in 1974. The young man was a politics and economics student at the prestigious King's College London, a life of privilege and promise stretching out before him. That evening, he happened to be wearing a Patek Philippe watch, a masterpiece of Swiss engineering valued at approximately £37,000. As Mohammed and Nasser turned from a main thoroughfare into a quiet, poorly lit alleyway, they were ambushed from behind. Two men, who had been lying in wait, pounced on them. The entire, brutal encounter lasted a mere 8 seconds. In that fleeting, violent span of time, Mohammed was stabbed once in the chest. His friend Nasser was also stabbed in the hip but would ultimately survive his injuries. Though mortally wounded, Mohammed managed to stumble back towards the main street, collapsing near the iconic Harrods Christmas tree. Despite the desperate efforts of passers-by, security staff, and paramedics to save him, he died at the scene. The news of the murder sent a shockwave of fear and disbelief through the city. This was a brazen and merciless attack in one of London's wealthiest and most heavily policed neighborhoods, a place synonymous with security and luxury. For Mohammed's family, the loss was unimaginable. In a statement later read in court, his brother Ray described him as someone who spread joy and kindness to anyone who crossed his path and condemned the cowardly attack that had so senselessly stolen his life. His family's hearts, they said, were eternally broken. The motive seemed chillingly clear, a robbery targeting Mohammed's expensive watch. The Metropolitan Police immediately launched an intensive manhunt, understanding that the killers had specifically targeted the two students for their apparent wealth in a city that is a global hub of luxury. That night, London's glittering image became the backdrop for a murder born from that very symbol of prosperity. A killing in Beetama. Almost 2 years later, on July 28, 2021, another family would hear the name Mohammed al-Alami inextricably linked with a sudden, violent death. This time, the setting wasn't a glamorous, festive city street, but the town of Beit Umar in the occupied West Bank.
فأنا شو بقول لأولادي؟ بقول لهم يا أولادي هاتوا روسكم بلاش تبرنا رصاص. هبط الولد صغير عمره 5 سنين، هبط راسه من الارض، تعب، نزل على قاع السياره. محمد اطلعت لك عليه لقيته نايم في حضن اخته. بقول له يابا ليش نايم؟ قوم يابا قوم، تخافش، خلص تعدينا الجيش، الحمد لله رب العالمين.
12-year-old Mohammed al-Alami was in the car with his father, Mohammeds, and his siblings. They were on their way home from a simple errand, having just picked up groceries for the family. According to his father's heart-wrenching account, they were nearing their town's entrance when Mohammed realized they had forgotten something. He asked his father to turn back to a different shop for some sweets. Mohammed agreed and began to execute a slow U-turn. It was at that precise moment that Israeli soldiers stationed at a nearby military post opened fire on their family vehicle. The car was riddled with over 10 bullet holes. Mohammed was struck by 5 of those bullets in his chest and abdomen. His father, in a state of panic and horror, rushed him to a nearby hospital, but after 4 agonizing hours in surgery, the boy died from his catastrophic wounds. The Israeli military offered a starkly different and conflicting account of the events. They initially claimed that soldiers had suspected the car was connected to a separate, suspicious incident involving the burial of a baby earlier that day. They stated that they had called on the car to stop and, when it sped away, had fired at the vehicle's tires. However, this narrative was vehemently disputed by Mohammed's family and human rights organizations. Mohammed al-Alami was adamant that they posed no threat and never heard any warnings to stop. The most compelling counter-evidence came in the form of a security camera video, secured and released by the Israeli human rights group B'Tselem. The footage appeared to directly support the father's account, showing the family car slowly turning away from the soldier's position before a volley of at least a dozen shots is heard. For his grieving family, this was no misunderstanding, it was an unjustified and brutal killing. In an interview, Mohammed's father expressed his profound grief, stating, "They kidnapped him from the air of my heart. I am the one who died too, not just Mohammed." Mohammed al-Alami became the 11th Palestinian child killed by Israeli forces in the West Bank that year, a statistic that did little to convey the depth of his family's loss. His death ignited days of clashes, further highlighting the profound chasm in how justice is perceived and pursued. 2 boys named Mohammed, 2 violent deaths, but the investigations that followed would take drastically different turns. The path to justice in London. In London, the investigation into Mohammed al-Araimi's murder was swift and relentless. Detectives from the Metropolitan Police pored over hundreds of hours of CCTV footage from Knightsbridge's vast and sophisticated network of cameras, quickly isolating and releasing images of the 2 men they believed were responsible. The public pressure, combined with solid police work, yielded results. In January 2020, just over a month after the murder, one of the suspects, a 23-year-old Kuwaiti citizen named Badir Rahim al-Nazi, handed himself in at a central London police station. His accomplice, a German national named Asbun Dilbaro, who had fled to Egypt after the killing, was arrested months later in July 2020 upon his arrival at Heathrow Airport. Their trial took place at the Inner London Crown Court, a public process under the full scrutiny of the British legal system. The prosecution meticulously laid out its case, arguing that al-Nazi and Dilbaro had travelled to the wealthy neighbourhood with the specific intent to rob someone of a high-value watch. Al-Nazi offered a weak defence, claiming he had only approached Mohammed to ask for a cigarette and had been insulted, an account the court found was not supported by any credible evidence. Dilbaro, in his defence, blamed al-Nazi entirely for the violence. In August 2021, after weighing the evidence, the jury delivered its verdict. Badir al-Nazi was found guilty of murder and wounding with intent. Asbun Dilbaro was acquitted of the murder charge but found guilty of wounding Mr. Kanu. Justice, in the formal, legal sense, was delivered. The judge, sentencing al-Nazi to life in prison with a minimum term of 27 years, made a poignant observation: in the space of 8 seconds, a life was lost. Dilbaro was sentenced to 33 months in prison. For Mohammed al-Araimi's family, the conviction brought a definitive legal conclusion, though it could never assuage their grief or bring him back. His surviving friend, Nasser Kanu, who gave evidence via video link from Bahrain, delivered a powerful statement reflecting on the senselessness of the crime. No matter what the motive was, there is no convincing enough reason to take an innocent life away and traumatize another. A different aftermath. For the family of 12-year-old Mohammed al-Alami, the path to justice has been entirely different, a journey marked by doubt, opacity, and a profound sense of powerlessness. While the Israeli military announced it had opened an investigation into the killing, his father, Mohammed al-Alami, expressed a deep and immediate skepticism that anyone would ever be held accountable. "I do not expect the investigation to lead to anything," he stated in an interview, a sentiment born from long experience and observation. "I have no confidence in the investigation until I see the soldiers in court." The release of the Patek video, which appeared to starkly contradict the army's initial claims that the car was speeding or that soldiers fired at the tires, amplified calls for genuine accountability from both Palestinian and Israeli human rights organizations. Patek concluded that the video shows the soldiers had no reason to open fire and that the family posed no threat whatsoever. However, such internal military investigations into killings of Palestinians rarely result in criminal charges or convictions of soldiers, a pattern documented for years by groups like Defense for Children International, Palestine, DCIP. The organization noted that Mohammed was the 11th Palestinian child killed by Israeli forces in the West Bank that year alone. His funeral was itself marred by violence, with another young Palestinian man shot and killed during the ensuing clashes. In the years that have passed since his death, there have been no public reports of charges being filed, let alone any convictions. His family has been left with their immeasurable grief and the pervasive, crushing feeling that justice, for them, was simply out of reach. This is where the two cases, superficially linked by a name, diverge into two separate realities. A search online for these events presents a disorienting diptych of tragedy. One is a closed case, the story of a major, transparent police investigation, a public trial with a jury, and a conviction that brought a clear, if painful, legal resolution. The other remains an open wound, a story of conflicting narratives, a military investigation shrouded in a lack of transparency, and a family left with little more than video evidence and a profound sense of despair. The stories of these two boys, Mohammed Al-Araimi and Mohammed Al-Alami, serve as a stark and sobering reminder that while the value of a human life should be universal, the path to justice often depends entirely on where that life is taken and under what circumstances. One case concluded with a life sentence, broadcast to the world as a testament to a legal system functioning as designed. The other remains a point of contention in a decades-long conflict, a statistic in reports by human rights organizations, and a source of unending pain for a family that feels abandoned by the mechanisms of accountability. There is no conspiracy here, no hidden link between a luxury London street and a quiet West Bank town. There is only the tragic, random irony of a shared name, a coincidence that forces us to confront two vastly different worlds and their disparate outcomes. The comparison compels us to ask difficult questions. What does justice truly mean when the process, the accountability, and the final resolution are so devastatingly different? The tale of two Mohammeds is not just about two deaths, it is a reflection of the unequal worlds they inhabited and the unequal justice they received. What are your thoughts on these two paths to justice? Share your perspectives respectfully in the comments below.